Welcome back to the Sunday Sweet podcast, where high performers share the exact habits and decisions that move the needle. I'm going to ask you a simple question now. Could you confidently invest £100,000 into the most brilliant business idea? Now, ask yourself the same question, but this time for your own self-development, the kind of investment no one else sees but you. My guest today has done exactly that. He's a coach, a podcast host, and someone that's learned the hard way that you can't pour from an empty cup. Luke, welcome to the Sunday Suite.
Oh, do you know what, Meg? It's a pleasure to be here. I know we had a great conversation before, and when you'd spoken about you was getting this podcast launched and ready to go, and then you invited us, I was like, oh, I've got to do this. So thanks again.
I was so honored actually when I asked you, because I was like, do I ask him? Knowing that you're a podcast host yourself, and like I know we just randomly met on LinkedIn and you offer some guidance and support to me, and it wasn't something that I thought to think about in the moment. And then we were chatting and I was like, no, you have a really awesome story. I'd love to have you on. And I got butterflies. I was like, what's he going to say? Like, I don't want to put the pressure on. And then when you turned around, you're like, yeah, I'd love to do it. I was like, man, like this is, such a nice feeling. Everything at the moment in my life seems to be like that whole paying it forward term. And I'm just obsessed with it. Like, it's so nice. Like, there's so many people that have been warm and supportive, really opening my eyes to like the good in the world, you know? As cheesy as it sounds.
No, I mean, look, I'll tell you this straight up. I mean, you'll feel this now when you sort of get in with all the podcast hosts. It's so nice to be on the other side, though, Meg. You know, like because obviously it sort of switches the spotlight a little bit. You know, obviously for me, I'm putting the spotlight on the guest, and then like obviously you're doing vice versa, and it's just refreshing. But also it reminds you, like this will be a reminder for me as well today. Actually, oh, okay, yeah, I've got a pretty cool story. You know, and it's refreshing to do that.
Yeah, no, I love it. As I introduced you, I said, you know, what would seem like a somewhat easy question, if you had the money, if you had £100,000 to invest onto a brilliant business idea that you knew was going to smash it, it was going to work, would you do it? And I'm sure the likelihood of most people would be like, yes, for sure. But then I said, ask that question again, but invest it in yourself. And I wanted to ask that because I know you've done that. I know you've invested so much into your self-development. And I want to know, what's one of the things that has shaped you the most during that journey?
I think it's the failures. I think that's it. You know, I've had so many more failures than wins. You know, I mean, so many more. I think this is very, very important for anyone listening to this show that is entrepreneurial or wants to set up their own business, or even maybe they've got, you know, an employed role, but they've got a lot of responsibility. It's not about failing backwards, it's about failing forwards. So it's falling in love with that. And that's something that took me so long in early stages of business, is that I thought failure was rejection, that you're not good enough. But actually, failure is a lesson that actually moves you forward, because you become more resilient, you become stronger. So for me, it's been a roller coaster ride in all of these experiences. If I was to pinpoint just one for your audience, it was, and I'll never forget it, it was when I was at my peak in terms of like revenue was flying in, and I had this idea to set up a business with my fiance Abby, and it was more about, right, I'll coach. It was a holistic well-being program, actually, and it goes on to really setting up the podcast, because I didn't want to lose that sort of branch, which was Master Your Life. So obviously the podcast is Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom, but we set up this program called Master Your Life, got a drone, invested over £10,000 on the launch. We rushed it, right? It all sounded amazing. It was so shiny. And I was coaching the males, Abby was coaching the females. We wanted it to be a partner program where it was pretty much all about you as a couple sort of thriving. And we did everything: email marketing, graphics, web page, landing page. I mean, I'm talking every single thing that most people would do before launching it, right? So we did, and he just failed. And when I say failed, I mean nobody came into the program. And nobody. There was no bites. There was not even a conversation to have with somebody to be like, would you be interested? Or what's the investment? What's included? And I look back upon hindsight and I think, what was the reason? Why did that happen? Because literally I was doing so well in what I was doing on the build up to that. And all it was really is that it wasn't right. It wasn't a move that was right for us. All right. So like what that taught myself and Abby is that we are not meant to do business together. Now, most people as partners will do that. You know, they'll be like, if you're both business owners, you'll say, oh, we'll do something together. Like maybe you set up a web design company or, you know, a marketing company together where one does videography, one does, say, I don't know, the PR or whatever, right? We've made that distinction from that experience, from the failure, that we are better. We're in the same industry, but we run separate businesses.
I wonder, because what's slightly confusing about that story is that you did everything right. So do you now have, and I don't expect you to, but do you now have a slight fear or something that holds you back from taking risks because you committed to something, you did everything that you could have and it still didn't work?
No, I'd still would take risks. Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think you have to take these risks. You have to invest money, lose money. You know, I mean, look, we talk about this all the time, right? You know, money comes and goes. You can always sort of, if you've got that confidence and backing behind you, you can sort of challenge yourself to sort of make that money back. But time, you can't. You know, time goes and it's gone. You know, you can't just go back in a time machine and do it all over again. I mean, I know it's a common question. Like, if you had that time again, what would you do? I wouldn't change anything, because what it's given me is what, like, we now know as a you know, as a couple as well. It's like we can focus on our own things and develop and create our own things. And I've taken risks in other avenues in business, but also what it also made me realize is where I'm best placed with the people that I work with, because I had conditioned myself to only work with men. And I thought that was going to be my accelerator, my momentum, where I focus on working with just coaching men only. And bearing in mind, I was blindsided at the time because I had a good 40-50% of my client base that were female. So they were sort of asking me, going, oh, Luke, so you're not going to coach me anymore? Is that sort of like, are you pushing me out? And I was just like full on this launch mode of this new shiny program. But then when I looked at it, I did lose a few clients as well. I looked at it and went, hold on a minute, who am I? Like, is this aligned with me? But until that launch and failure happened, I would never have taught that lesson.
How long after that failure did it take you to see it as a gift?
2.5 years. Yeah, I lost. So just from that moment, that's where my business plummeted. So you could say that I was in the trenches. I was desperate in business. I hit my lowest ever revenue months. I was back on a self-discovery path, which that's where I was when I was leaving football behind to then find a new career path. So I found myself losing. This was the second time I lost my identity because I didn't know where I wanted to go. I'd left sort of the personal training gym floor behind. I went online. I got, I guess, conditioned through mentorships and after post-COVID that, oh, this online world is fast growing. It's the place to be. It's the freedom. You know, it's like you're going to be able to work from anywhere in the world from a laptop. And that's what I thought. And I thought, this is me. This is me. Yeah, God, can't wait. But actually, it was going against everything of who I am as a person. But I didn't know that until I started seeing that revenue dwindle. But then actually in myself, I was feeling very low as well mentally. I was losing. I wasn't having fun anymore, you know, and I guess until you're in that position for a period of time, not just a week, you know, months and years, then you know that something's got to shift. And that's when I started to shift it, really.
And that's the terrifying part, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people hear that advice over and over again, that there is lesson in the failure. But even before we jumped on and hit record, I was telling you that being out of control is the most scary place to be sometimes. And so if you're saying, I could be feeling that way for 2.5 years, no, thank you. I'd rather skip the lesson. I think a lot of people would say, you know?
Yeah, everybody wants the answers, though. You know, you want the solution to a problem. If you've got a problem, where's the solution? Instantly. For me, I didn't know what day it was sometimes. I was waking up every single day and there was only me that could make the change. I couldn't rely on anyone else. You know, and I've had multiple experiences where I've been taken the... Am I right to swear, by the way? Yeah, okay, yeah, just making sure. I've had the piss taken out of me, you know, and they're just laughing at me. I know it. Oh, yeah, it's all right, you know, Luke will do that for me, or ha, ha, ha. You know, we'll just tell Luke to do that, and we'll know he'll just spend the money sort of thing. And I had to really start owning in on where I was going to go. And look, I'll be honest, you know, I was searching for jobs. You know, I was getting really desperate. I was plucking at straws. I'd even I didn't I didn't really share it publicly online, but I'd taken out a business loan at the time as well to sort of work with this psychology coach, which, I'll plug him in and say it really did help me slow down a little bit. I was literally like a Ferrari car with no tread on the tires. That's how I was operating day to day. I was still sleeping at night. I don't know how I was sleeping at night, but I was just full on every day. I was business networking. Every email that came in, I was hoping it was going to be an opportunity to save me. You know, it wasn't a good place.
So how did you actually rediscover yourself in the end then? Was it like a light bulb moment? Was it lots of small moments that built up to something big, or was it something that just came out of nowhere?
Um, I put this down to obviously having a conversation with the psychology coach in a space where somebody just sat and listened, but then challenged me. So there's a difference between that, right? Therapy and coaching. This is a distinction that I found from my own experience. Therapy, I'm not saying anything bad about therapy because I've had therapy before. They just listen. And then you go away and you come back and you just keep pouring your cup. Your emotions are all out, you cry, whatever. That's fine. But where's the insight? Where's the challenge for you to rewire your brain or find something that you think, oh, that guy stopped me in my tracks. Oh, that female stopped me in my tracks. I need to do some work. Because you've got to work. If you just keep talking about it, you're not actually actioning anything, then you're not going to change. So what this guy said to me is, he was like, whoa, okay, Luke, okay, I hear you. For somebody to just say that, I hear you, sort of softened me down. It's like the barrier just dropped slightly. And then he said, you've got to slow down. It sounds really simple, but I guess at that moment in time, it's what hit for me. So I was thinking, slow down. Okay. So what do and I started to assess it. He says, Luke, go away from this conversation. Look at your life. Where's the moments that you slow down? And there was none, right? It was always noise. I never sat in stillness. It was earpods in, music, podcasts, radio. There was never any sort of no noise. It was just constant. So that was chaos. So I just at that point started to get into running. And, near where we live, we're in a village and it's countryside and trail running, all that kind of stuff. And do you know what? I thought to myself, I'm not going to wear my earpods anymore. I'm not going to wear any music. I'm just going to just try and run and just, 3K, 5K with nothing in. Weird. So weird. I was like, I could hear birds, I could hear trees, I could hear cars. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this, but I committed to myself because I was thinking, but then what started happening was I was enjoying it, weirdly enjoying it. And I started building up my distance and running. And then in 2024, well, actually back into 2023, this was the period where I was really struggling, like mentally, and like business was on its arse basically, is I committed to doing my first ever ultra marathon. So that was in the Peak District, which I love the Peak District. And it was 48 kilometers. So an ultra marathon, if no one's sure what that is, it's just anything longer than a marathon. So a marathon's 42.2K. This was 48 kilometers. And you know what? I ran that with no music in my ears. And people go, what? How do you do that? It must be boring. It wasn't. It was peace. Because for me, my thoughts for probably the first 5 to 10K could be, am I going to do this? Am I going to get to this 48K? I'm rushing. I'm chaos. I'm on edge. But because it's like 4 or 5 hours out in the mountains and you just see nature around you and you're in your own space and you've got no noise, no disruption, no distraction. No one's in your ear. You've got no emails pinging in. It's you v you. And that's what slowed me down. And that was sort of a turning point for me to have more stillness. And I do yoga as well. I do hot yoga where I go into like a hot pod tent thing. I don't have no watch on. Everyone's watching it, starting workout, looking at the heart rate halfway through. I just go in there with no watch on. I don't track it. I just go in there for peace. And I think that's what, obviously it's looking after you, right? It starts with you. It always starts with you. It ends with you, starts with you. So that was what helped me. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a massive time investment, ultra running and stuff like that. It's a lot. It's hours and hours a week, but that's what gave me the catapult to reconnect with my identity.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about that because I consider myself someone that goes at 100 miles per hour as well.
Okay.
And so when I've spoken to people about how to find some downtime and invest back into me, I remember a coach telling me, if you go 100 miles per hour, you should try running. You don't have to necessarily slow down in what you're doing. If meditating or journaling doesn't work, maybe do something that's fast paced that does. But I'd never thought about it from a sense of chaos versus noise type aspects. Like
Mm.
if I'm in the gym and I'm working out or I'm on the treadmill, I will not waste that time. So I'll listen to a business podcast, I'll reply to emails, I'll be double timing it. Do you know what I mean? I'm doing two things at once because I'm like, I can't just be here and not do anything, essentially. If I'm on a dog walk, I always call my mum or my brother. I just don't want to be out like in nothing. And
Okay.
every time I go to bed, I play it's funny to some, but like crime podcast to help me sleep, because that is the worst time that my mind will start racing. And so I use all of these like filler noise things to stop me being present and facing anything really. I think it helps me run away from some of those things. And I never really realized until you just said that.
Yeah. This is it. Yeah, yeah. So as yeah, I mean that's great that you do that. I mean, obviously, I think it's whatever works for you. But if you're constantly filling time to try and be or feel productive, because obviously when you're very driven, like obviously you are, you know, I am, you think to yourself, right, I've got this spare time, let me use it well. But actually, just sometimes you being in your own space and just going on a dog walk and taking the environment in and not having a phone call just on one of your walks a week, it just gives you that sort of time to slow down. And yeah, I mean, everybody talks about it. I mean, I know when I was in this performance coaching company, you know, one of the guys said, do you know what? My best ideas, my business ideas, my creativity, it comes when I'm in the shower. Imagine, shower, right? Well, and then the guy, like people were trying to ask details, like, oh, you don't need to tell me, you know, what exactly happens in your shower, but, you know, it's like, why do you feel that is? And he was like, well, obviously I don't go in with my watch on. I take my watch off all the time. I mean, you can go in with your watch on because obviously they're waterproof, whatever. But he says, I don't go in watch on. And I just let the water, like you might have a bit of cold and heat or whatever. And I let that pour on my head. And it's just a sort of like take a few deep breaths. Because obviously I've had a busy day. Like I might be like, oh, finally I'm in the shower. Whew, I can chill out a little bit. So then it's like those thoughts just start slowing down. And it's just a way of him starting to check in with what's gone on through the day. And it's like, boom, insight. Because we're always next, non-stop. Oh my God, I'm here. You know, and it's just, where's the space?
I see so much at the moment about this like slow living CEO. And for me, slow living makes me feel so guilty. Like it does. It feels like I'm wasting time not
I feel
working
you.
on something that I should be. Yeah. And and again, like I've said this a few times now, but I appreciate everyone that comes on here and shares their advice. I love book recommendations. I'll listen to all the podcasts, but exactly back to your point of having failure and learning from those lessons, like until it really happens to you and until you're forced to slow down and wake up, I'm not sure how quickly you can get there. I think it has to be super personal to you. I think you have to face these challenges and be like, oh my gosh, this is emotionally tied to me because, you know, I hear what you're saying and I can challenge myself to go out and not use headphones on a run, but is it going to change exactly the way I am? No, because I didn't go through that thing that you went through that changed you.
Sure.
You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's like this is what's great about obviously like these conversations because it's very individualized, you know, one thing may work for others, may not. I think the big thing that's sort of always been a part of what I've done through business and what, you know, people talk about audits, right? Or they talk about checking in. I think you have to check in with yourself, not your business, you. Because you're checking with your business, you'll look at your profits, you look at your Q1s, your Q2s, your Q3s, your lead generations, your CRM systems, you know, all the stuff that, you know, keeps the business going, right? You know where things are at. But do you ever check in with yourself? You know?
We're gonna disrupt it because
Sorry,
I
yeah,
keep hearing work in the business, work on the business, and we're gonna add a
yeah.
third one, work on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about being your authentic self and, you know, how that's changed everything for you. What does that look like?
So, I mean, I've never been somebody that is like, you know, I'm very sort of honest. Like, I want that to portray. I think if I look at the difference when I wasn't as authentic, I think that's because I was following the crowd and I was following the money. You know, I was just looking at what was going well. I was comparing myself, right? You know, everybody can say they've been through moments like, oh, let me just, because people say, yeah, but you know, if someone's doing really well, like copy them, but in your own way. See, I do that literally though. So I find myself just literally trying to copy. rather than actually finding my own way, because that distracts me. I'm somebody that has to like be inspired and then find what actually works for me. So the authenticity piece, I sort of shared this quite openly online. Two things that I promised myself when it came to business, even throughout this identity shift for me, was I want to be my true authentic self online and when people sort of have a conversation like this, but I also want that to bring people together through my authenticity. So authenticity and community are two things that I've leaned into massively, and that's transformed my business, because people buy you, people love you, people connect with you on such a level that is beyond what people want to, like, you may think, like, this is what I used to think, people want to see your awards all the time, or people want to see that you're smashing your business. They don't. What they want to see is that rawness. You know, they want to see like, hey, I've failed at this, or do you know what, I've actually, you know, I found this. And it's really hard to articulate online. I find it hard. But I think if you can show that behind the scenes, that journey, that what's going on, and I just think you feel better as a person because you know that you're showing up your true self. And then that bleeds into everything you do day to day. It's not like you're having to put on a filter or a mask in certain scenarios. You find yourself just whatever room you walk into or whatever environment you are your true self.
Why do you think some people hold back from doing that?
It's just fear. You know, it's fear of probably, you know, I think, you know, in CEO roles, in business, look, I've been into rooms, right, where I've gone to these sort of business marketing days, whatever they may be, you know, I've invested in it, and you find yourself, I've found myself at times catching myself going, oh, Luke, you're trying to be on their level. You know, you're trying to talk to fit in, you know, like we want to fit in. And I'm like, no. You know, be yourself. Just say it how it is. Like, don't just agree with them if you don't agree with them. I think people just want to sort of like feel like, look, as humans, right, we're tribal. We want to feel part of something. We want to belong. So people will literally do what we say a lot. Oh, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. But then throughout that, you at the end of it, like say you do make it, you're empty.
I actually was told that by my first therapist when I was 16 years old. I think he was a psychology therapist type person. First sort of bout of depression, not in a good place. And he used to say to me, fake it till you make it. It was the first time I ever heard that thing. And it used to be in a sense of fake it till you make it, fake happiness until it comes. You know, it was almost like acting positive attracts positivity. It was kind of that mindset, I think. The way some people use the phrase today, I don't know how much I agree with it.
I think we just, I if you take it literally, which people do, I mean, you can spin it in different ways, but I think the world that we live in today, there's just so much filtering. There's so much like shiny going on that the fake it till you make it it's not authentic. I think a lot of people, I mean, I know straight away, I mean, especially with asking questions on the podcast, that's why I do the free flow element, which you're doing as well. It's, you can't fake it. You're coming into this room and I'm going to ask you a question. I'm putting you on the spot. So you've got to show up as your authentic self. And that's what I say before I start the show. I'm like, look, I just want you to come into this open and just let it flow. And I think, do you know what? That's where true happiness gets discovered. Because you walk away with an experience that you'll never forget, because you'll be like, damn, I've never spoke like that before. Or, wow, you know. And if that person who's listened to you can bounce that back to you, you know, it's like I've had comments before where people go, gosh, Luke, you'd literally come across like you would on a post. So they know it's not AI. They know it's not, you know, they know it's not just a logistic thing. They know it's human element. It's got that human first touch on it, which I preach all the time. Human first, business second, you know?
What version of yourself did you have to let go? You know, going back to being in football, going back to some of those really challenging times, like who were you before who you are now?
I think I had to let go of my emotions, as in I am a sensitive person, I'll be honest. So I'm very passionate, you know, I love helping people. And I also love to know that what I do is going somewhere. So I think I let my emotions get the better of me. Like, say, like in football, for example, I took everything literally. I feared rejection, and every scenario that I was in, I panicked. I guess I had a lot of panic, you know? So I had to let that go and go, Luke, like drill it into myself that you're going to fail. It's part of your journey. The emotions, don't let them drown you. Like, check in with them, just take a deep breath, check in with yourself, like, look, okay, panic's kicking in, or, stresses, you feel that like flush, that rush of like adrenaline, your heart rate just boom, goes straight up when you feel that stress again. And I'm like, is it, I sort of like try and come out myself to look at myself and go, is this actually a story that's happening to you right now, or are you like 10x in it?
Yes,
You
I
know,
get that.
I think that's what it's like. We are hard on ourselves. I'm very hard on myself. And I think just having that sort of perspective with me checking in with me has been a big game changer, I think.
A lot of my worries, and there's so many variations of this quote out there, but a lot of my worries never actually happened.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of my stress comes from, because I build up this picture of overthinking and
Yeah.
imagining what could be the worst case scenario. Um, and yeah, it's crucifying when you think about it. I think sometimes when I look back on moments when I haven't been in good places, and I'm like I should have just gave myself a hug and looked after myself, like what was I doing to myself? Like,
Yeah.
you're number one.
It is. Yeah, I completely resonate with that. I think we do really sort of, I think because time was ticking as well. And at that time when I sort of hung my boots up in football, I wasn't thinking about me. I was thinking about everybody else. I was thinking, what am I going to say to people? I failed. I'm not a footballer. I've literally everybody, when I left school, I had a leavers book, everybody written in it. I had a leaving party, and everyone was like writing in there, oh, Luke, remember me when you're famous. I can't wait for you to sign one of my t-shirts. It was that. Like, people genuinely believed that I was going to make it. And I did at that time. Obviously, it very much shifted when I stepped into that world, because you don't know until you're in it. But as soon as it all crushing down on me and stuff, I was like, oh, well, what? I wasn't thinking about me. I was like, what am I going to say? So I think for me, the version of success is ultimately down to, obviously, am I aligned with the values of what I stand by in life? So values for me are honesty, communication, and respect. And it starts with me. So am I doing those things myself? And then am I portraying that in my family life? So obviously my close loved ones. And then am I doing that in my day-to-day work? So again, human first, business second. And then am I allowing myself in my week to serve myself first, to serve others? Yeah, doing that. And then and by the way, I don't do this perfectly. It's not all
Yeah.
linear. It's very non-linear. Like, some weeks I do it, some weeks I don't. But if I know I think the biggest word here, Meg, is awareness. If I'm aware of it and that I'm doing that, I think, and I'm happy, I'm having fun, I'm doing stuff outside of work, I know I've got some plans in place, I've got some trips away, I've got some downtime, and my boundaries they do get abused sometimes, in the evenings when I'm sort of off whatever, right? We're not expecting everything to be smooth or perfect. Then I feel that's success to me.
What is the business now then? So let's just dive in a bit deeper to what you actually do now.
Yeah, so for me, in terms of business, multiple branches, but where I'm at right now is I still do personal training in person with people, because I absolutely love that. That's obviously helping people with fitness, well-being, injury prevention. I work with all different types of people. I'm talking people that are in the 60s that have got hips and knee replacements and they just want quality of life. I've got people that are wanting to run a marathon. I've got people that I work with MS. I've got clients that's got one arm, like, literally they bring their problems to me and I work around that through my experience. I've been doing it like 10 years. Second thing is, obviously, I also do business consulting. That's more of a side hustle. So I particularly work with people that are employed that want to build the dream business on the side. And they're struggling. They're struggling with time. They're struggling with energy. They're struggling with that sort of gap on, okay, Luke, I'm employed, but I want to build this dream business, but I really don't know where to start. And also, I feel like it's a great idea that I've got, but I'm fearing rejection. I'm fearing, how am I going to test this? So that's what I do there, business consulting. That's one-to-one. That's not a group coaching program. That's just one-to-one. And I sort of call that, it's like a first step to master your life. I call it master your time. So I sort of like broken it down into like the first step. So then, yeah, that the master your life part will be a more of a longer term vision for me to build a 12-month program where that'll be truly like mastering your life. You're never going to master your life, right? Let's be honest. You know, it's constantly a reinvention. However, it's like, what would mastering your life look like for you, right? You know, what would that mean to you? So in 12 months, maybe somebody might go from being employed to building the dream business and maybe, I don't know, ticking 5 things off the bucket list. I don't know, whatever that may be. So that's business consulting. Obviously, I'm a podcast host. So for me, the dream with that is to run a live show. So next year, that's pretty much wheels in motion for that. So I want to bring an audience. I want to bring a live audience where people can ask a panel questions on the spot, because obviously we do it online, do it in a studio, and it's all recorded, right? It's not live. People may want to ask something. So that's my dream there. I've got a run club. So I do operate a run club, 5 kilometer. We do races, do events. It's just community stuff. I don't get paid for that. I don't get paid for podcasting, really. You know, it's ultimately about bringing people together and just, but the actual offspin of that is obviously, yes, it does grow your business because you get more eyes on what you do. It's exposure, it's visibility. And the last thing, I know it seems like I do a lot. The last thing that I do is I'm doing a lot of social media stuff via like TikTok and Instagram. I'm doing giveaways and collaborating with influencers so for example, at the minute we're doing a bit of a series and we want to build it to be a TV series where it's about feeling good and looking good. So he's a hairstylist and he's going to help people have a full makeover with the hair, but they've got to work for it. So the series is called Work For It. So in a giveaway, we're doing something completely against the grain where people, generally on a giveaway, like, share, tag 2 friends, you're on a wheel, you might win a holiday, or you might win a beauty set, or you might win a gym kit or something, right? Well, we're getting people to work for this. So I'm coaching them for 6 weeks to get on that start line to hit a 10K PB. But they still get a haircut and a hair transformation if they just cross that finish line and they don't hit the PB. They're still going to do it because they've got there, they've got to the start line, they've finished the race. It's not comparing to anyone else, it's just about them. Now, if they complete the race and hit their personal best, which I'm obviously coaching them through that, they get a chance to win a holiday. So what better way to finish the year? This is the series that where you're going to have professionals that are backing you. You don't pay a single penny. You just got to work for it. But the whole point of it is it's not just getting handed to you. You've got to show discipline, hard work. You've got to showcase what it is that you're doing. So you're being vulnerable as well. So like people are sharing what they're getting up to, and you're in a group. So that's the start of a new series. And again, that'll all intertwine with what so those little pockets of the business that I've got, they're all going to complement each other. And obviously, yeah, I can't do it all on my own eventually. Like, yeah, inevitably I'll build a team. But for now, it's growing.
Super interesting. Are you having these multiple streams of income because from a business mindset, that makes total sense? That's something you should be doing? Or is it just because lots of these different things give you multiple pieces of purpose? Because I think a lot of us are ingrained to have to go out and not necessarily have a linear career path, but to find a role or a title that we want to be in and that be it. But to have multiple slightly different titles is a little bit more unique.
Yeah, it's I think it's the way you have to be if you want to sort of grow a business, whatever success means to you. The success, what I've just sort of said for me is I want to stay creative. So inevitably for me, I want to know that sort of I have to create in the moment. I love the purpose aspect to it, but they all give me something different. So my tonality changes, my person, I have to shift into different modes. You know, I've got like my coaching mode, my consulting mode, my fun mode, you know, because obviously, you know, and it's what I'm giving back to people, I think, that really lights me up. I didn't know, obviously I had to give back to myself first, but when I had been in football, I felt very isolated. I felt very trapped. I also had a slight fear of claustrophobia. Nothing that's like I couldn't go in, you know, a dark room in a tight room, but honestly, I do sort of, it will bring my heart rate up a little bit. So I thought, well, if I'm only doing personal training, which I did do to start off with, and I was doing so many hours of that feeling came back. And then I looked at it and was going, and COVID was actually my blessing because it shut down my business. I couldn't do any personal training anymore. And what did it do? It slowed me down. It slowed everybody down. Everybody did lots of drastic changes through COVID, like left relationships, changed careers. Because when do you ever get, because the world's so fast paced, everything's slowed down. And I then realized going, okay. Can I see myself doing personal training for the rest of my life? You know, it's like, if you're listening to this episode today or watch it, ask yourself that question. Can I see myself doing, like, genuinely, hand on heart, can I see myself keeping this up for the next 20, 30 years? And probably most people are saying, no chance, but it just pays the bills. Or, nah, I can't do that. Well, you got to change something. Because if you don't change it, it's going to change you.
So that 2.5 year period now seems to obviously the door has closed on that chapter a little bit for you. And so I wonder, what scares you now? Now you're in a really comfy place, yeah. What scares you now?
I wouldn't say I'm comfortable, but so like business wise, I'm not financially where I was before I did that launch, right? I'll be transparent with your audience. So, like, I've always said this: there's two things that most people value, and it changes, right? It changes through courses of your life: time and money. And I asked myself that question: what do I value more? And it's time. Took me a while to say that, but I do value. Hence, I did master your time and stuff like that, because I could have go say master your money, whatever. But I'm not the best with money. I'll be honest. Like, I've had to learn the hard way, but I'm talented at spending it, but I'm not good with it. But in terms of, for me, it's like I wanted to put things in, not eggs in a row, but I wanted to do things that allowed me to be uncomfortable. And this is like, I don't know whether this is going to work out. So the fear is it going to work out? Am I doing too much? And am I going to find myself that all of these things don't work out because I'm not putting my energy into one thing, that they all just sort of dwindle away, and then I'm like left twiddling my fingers going, oh, I'm earning nothing. What do I do now? Like, oh, that's it. That is the fear for me, is that I'm just going to overwork, overstimulate, and then be left at the bottom of the pile, basically.
How do I learn to value time over money? I think I don't know how many people would admit to that. I think, it sounds a bit almost ridiculous to say I value money over time when you really think about it. Like, when you really think about it, if it comes down to your health and you've got, a month left, like, money doesn't matter then. Do you know what I mean? But for a lot of people, they luckily haven't had to face that fear or that challenge. And so they're just going through the motions of every day, where for me, I think I have a bit of an unhealthy relationship with money.
Okay.
I think I said to you before we jumped on, like, it's taken something really big for me to think, actually, no, my health is worth more than the money.
Okay.
But I wish it hadn't got to that point before I realized that. It's something about being so driven and having my income being tied to my value that, it will take a little while to break through that wall than just having this one conversation with you. But I wonder for you, like, was there anything that really stands out that helped you make that transition?
Yeah, I just want to touch on what you said there, though. You said you wish it didn't happen, but actually you do, because again, that comes from a point of, like, you learn from that.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you see what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, yes, it can be too late. Obviously, sometimes it can get catastrophic, but that's what's helped you rebuild a relationship with money.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about, the failure part. I think, again, just going back, I know this might be a bit of a tangent, but going back to where we'd spoken about being a little bit sort of all over the place and stuff like that, and the failing and all those things, it's those moments that shape you. Okay, it's those moments that put you in a place where you have to look within. You have to go inside you, because you can't keep it up. You can't keep going the pace that you're at. You can't. It's just you're gonna lose people, and that was my biggest fear. I'm like, if I keep going like this, I'm gonna lose everybody. And we know that the aversion of loss is 2 times greater than the gain. So what could I do in this moment? Well, I had to start with me, and that meant checking in with me. So, all right, we do financial audits, yeah?
Uh-huh.
So everyone does financial. Get your spreadsheets out. Your financial advisor will sit with you. Right, okay, let's have a look. Where do you want your future to be in 30 years? And people might go, I want to retire when I'm 50, whatever. Right, okay. It's different now, but you know what I mean? You sort of get the point. They're doing reverse engineering. If you want to save for a house, do that with look at your time. Do a time audit. You compound interest with money. You've got a 4% saver or a 5% saver, whatever, and you put that money in, you see where it's going. If you was to give yourself, say, so people go, I ain't got time. Bullshit, right? I'll call bullshit on that. Audit your time like you'd audit your money. Oh, can you put £5 away a week? No, I can't. I spend it all. You can put £5 away a week. That's £20 a month. That's £250 a year, whatever it works out at. Okay? So that same thing, 10 minutes a day, 70 minutes a week, 280 minutes a month, blah, 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 blah. Towards your dream or towards your mental health or whatever it is. That stacks, that compounds, that's a commitment. Right now, that requires more effort, obviously, because with money, you can just direct debit it and gone. But obviously, when it's your time, you will find that you leak time. You'll find that you put yourself in debt with time due to maybe pleasing other people. And then the time, I say time's really key, but then have a look at your energy as well. So have a look where your energy's at with that time invested. So, for example, if you're doom scrolling for 3 hours a day, everyone says look at your screen time, but be really like audit your time, have a look at it. You'll find yourself that that's not bringing anything in return. So what's that time invested? What's in return? What's in return of your energy? What's in return money? And I think what people start realizing is that more time in, yes, may for most people mean more money. Same with me with personal training. You know, I've got a ceiling that I can hit with money. I can't just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. I can't put a number on it. Like if somebody said, Luke, help me build my dream business in 6 months, I could say, okay, that's 10 grand. Well, they'd look at that and go, that's a lot of money, but they wouldn't, because they could go, yeah, but if that 10 grand is going to help me go from a 30 grand a year job to 60 grand a year, I'm basically doubling my income. See, with personal training, you go, I'm £50 an hour, £60 an hour, whatever, but that's it. It's your time for your money. But if you look at that from an audit perspective, if you keep putting more time in, yes, you're earning more money, but what's that bringing in return for your life? Lost relationships, disconnect from your partner, don't know where your head's at, you know what I mean? It's like no holidays. And you'll tell yourself, I'm only going to do it for a short period of time. Bollocks. You find yourself a year's gone by and you're still in exactly the same position.
Yeah, it becomes a routine. It's
yeah,
addictive.
yeah.
Like I look at myself now, like I've got this holiday coming up. That'll be the first 2 weeks I've had off all year. And I'm taking my work laptop. I'm working every day, all hours up until that point. And then I think about it and it's easier said than done. So I'm not going to sit here and preach and say this out loud and be like, oh, now I'm cured that, I've solved my own issue. No, because it's not the case. But I'll work all these hours. I will see less of people. I will have less time off. I'll put all that money into savings. What have I got to show for it now? Do you know what I mean? When I say it out loud, what's left then? What am I doing with, where am I reaping the reward of this? And I know that people say, oh, you'll do it for a year or two, or you'll build something up and you'll invest in, it'll become bigger and then you can retire and relax. But when you tie your whole identity or your value to your job, it, like you said, that won't last a year. A year turns into 5, it turns into 10. And when it comes to retirement, you're left with this empty pit in your stomach of, oh my gosh, what is my life now? Because my whole life has revolved around this job.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah. I see it honestly, like I can't even begin to tell you, Meg, I see it time and time again. I've been on cruise ships, right? So I've had the opportunity to have conversations with, the previous generation, or the previous generation prior to that, right? And very different. Obviously, we can go into Gen Zs, Gen whatever, but the sort of the same recurring pattern kept happening when I have these conversations. Do you know what? Do all that stuff. Oh, if I could go back in time, or if I could talk to my 21-year-old self. Oh, listen, what you're doing, Luke, you're doing it right. You're enjoying your life. You're traveling the world, whatever. They said that they regret not spending time presently, like present time, not just time, being present with the kids growing up. I've spoken with CEOs that's got 9-figure businesses, right? And I go, listen, what's one regret that you've got? I'll tell you what, Luke, I was on holiday with my family, and I took an important call, and basically took an important call when his daughter had done this swimming thing that was amazing. His wife caught it, he didn't. And I know that sounds small, but he wished that he would have been more present and not was taking those calls when on a holiday. Bearing in mind, that holiday was bloody expensive, because he got the money for it, fine, he's earning lots of money, but he can't switch off, or not switch off, because to say completely switch off is, as a business owner is really hard, but just to be like, look, I'm going to spend, or I'm going to invest this 5 days with my family and not answer work emails or answer phone calls. I'm just going to like let my PA deal with it, because he's got that much money, they can deal with it. Or, just things like that. And even giving you another example, I've just been away with my dad to Montenegro, and he said something to me that I didn't know. And now I knew he wasn't around that much, and it was different. I get it. Like back then, guys had to probably provide a lot more. Maybe there wasn't as much money around. I get that. But he said to me, he says, Luke, if there's one thing that I would say is a regret is just not spending enough time with you kids when you were growing up. Oof. I mean, that hits me. It hits me so hard, because obviously we just announced as well. I mean, we've got another baby on the way in April next year. And obviously I'm a dad already, our daughters too. And I am proud of my actions. I'm proud of my presence. Like literally, even after this podcast, we're going to go swimming, and I'm going to watch her swim, and I've been in the pool with her, and, I make that time, right? And it's just, that investment to me means a lot more than thousands of pounds going in my bank. And and it's not easy for me to say that, because of course I'd love a $2,000 deal, and of course I'd love somebody putting 10 grand in my bank for a coaching service. But for me to see that smile on her face, and for her to say, Daddy, look at me, and it's just, boom. It's different.
I remember reading something online about looking back on your life at 90 years old in your deathbed and having regrets would be one of the worst things to ever have to deal with, knowing that you cannot change that anymore. Like, time is gone, that's it. And for me, it was around that time when I was trying to figure out who I am, what's my role when it comes to work. Like, that's my whole dreams and aspirations have been tied to a career. And I just got a promotion. And the minute I got the promotion, I was like, right, on to the next. I didn't even have a moment to take in that feeling of, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And that's why I ended up going to a career coach, because all my life I'd been growing up around, like, if you have issues or problems, you go to therapy. But I was a bit sick of having to drag up the past. I was like, I need to work on today and tomorrow, not yesterday. And that's where I found like the perfect fit with coaching.
Well, that's honestly, that's amazing. And I just something that literally hit like as a light bulb, and this might resonate with your audience, I don't know, but something that I've worked with these guys that are employed is like, look at your, say, pay rise. Let's say you get a $3,000 pay rise, but your title's changed. Oh, the word title. Oh, I like my managerial title. Right? Ooh, fancy. Is it worth that extra time and responsibility for $3,000 a year? Is it really worth that extra time, stress? What is it doing behind closed doors that people can't see? You're taking your work home with you. You're never off your phone. You're constantly answering you've gone from 100 emails to 1,000 emails a week, right? That's the time money sort of trade-off. What does it look like? And that's the difference. And when you're sort of in it and somebody goes, can you just do a little bit extra? Can you do a little bit extra? You're like, yeah, of course. Because you're like, but now I'm a manager. Or now I'm this person. Cool, well done, nice. But you've now, because you don't check in with your time, let's say, you're now actually working an extra 30 hours per month and only getting paid for 10. And it's in it, I'm telling you, it's happening all the time, but people don't see it. And do you know why they don't see it? Because they're 100 miles an hour. They're chaos. There's no space. There's no slowing down. It's just 100 miles an hour. That's why I say, check in with your time first, then your energy.
We've spoken quite a lot about, well, I say a lot, a couple of things you've mentioned, running, hot yoga, self-reflection, like beyond the green juices and the gym. Can you tell me a little bit more about wellness and share some examples of what people can perhaps tap into?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first place with wellness is place yourself in an environment that is a wellness environment. Like retreats are great. I think that's quite groundbreaking for a lot of people, actually. So I've ran a couple of retreats. I've been on a couple myself. And I think it's really, really refreshing to sort of see what people find out about themselves and their life when they just put themselves into the environment. I think that's the biggest thing with wellness. Like, you can obviously go to sort of like, PerformX is great, by the way, just plugging in PerformX for like a wellness event or a wellness day sort of thing. You can see what's out there, like infrared, red light therapy, cryotherapy, all these treatments are great. But I think the best place to start would be find, if you can, just a weekend break that's a wellness retreat. And that wellness retreat, by the way, I think a lot of people sort of mistake it, and I did mistake wellness with being very spiritual.
Mm.
I'm not really on that page. Like, yes, I do like yoga, and don't get me wrong, I would do a little bit of meditation. I don't meditate because I find myself struggling to be so still. That's why I do running. Like what you said, I related to that. But it doesn't mean you have to do these, sound healing things, and do all these words of affirmation and all. You don't have these wellness retreats out there that could just be, hiking, walking, eating well, and just being around a group of people in a different warm environment. That's
That's interesting, actually, because I never really thought about retreats myself. It's something I might look into. I think there's something nice. I sit to my partner, and he laughs at me. I've never grown up to be religious at all in the slightest. And I said to him about going to church one day, and he was like, "Why? You're not Christian." And I was like, I love the fact that they have a really positive community where they all just back each other and they leave somewhere feeling like there's a bigger purpose than them. Like that kind of community around people. And for someone that, like, I'm quite content in my own space, my own time. Like I like a handful of people, and that's about that. But the areas or places I've learned so much about myself is actually being in environments around more people than just me,
yeah.
ironically.
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, I love that as well. Do you know what I found? And I don't know whether this is like people may agree with this or disagree, but this is what my sort of personal like opinion on it. The reason why I find people that like go to church that are really happy is because they've got a belief in something,
Yeah.
and it's so strong.
Oh, yeah.
So the people like say that are very negative or go, I don't believe in all that. That's fair enough, but what do you believe in then? So I could ask them, so what do you believe in? They've not got an answer. They go, life's just a blur for them. And if then they do try, I can't do that, then they've got a self-limiting belief. So they don't even believe in themselves. And that's what I've always that's been my role a lot, I guess. If people say, well, Luke, if I invest in you, what would you say the return would be? I said, I'm going to help you believe in yourself because I can't do it for
Yeah.
you. I can't do it for you.
That's honestly, that is the best gift I think you can give to someone. Like, I speak about this quite openly in my family, and there's a lot of us or people I know that depend on medications, they depend on therapy, and they just need something to get them up to par. But once you're at that par level, it is all on you. Someone can hold your hand, they can guide you, but you have to do it. This is all on you. And I think that's the hardest thing sometimes to come to terms with. But the minute you have some self belief in, I've got this far and I've survived this long, I can keep going, changes the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And ask yourself as well, like, where's the evidence? There's evidence in your life where you've took a jump, you've took a leap, you've done something that you believed at that moment, whatever's, you just did it. You believe that you could do it. But now, obviously, whether, responsibilities have kicked in, your life shifted a little bit, that it sort of dampened your beliefs because you're not working on it anymore. You've sort of gone into that. Go on.
No, I was gonna say, what's one thing we can leave people with today that's gonna inspire them to actually make a change?
Allow yourself to be vulnerable. I think that's something that I really struggled with, as in when I was not my authentic self. So when I say allow myself to be vulnerable, it's like you've got to put yourself in an environment where you feel like a retreat's a great thing as well. You don't need to tell people what you're doing. You can just sort of like book the trip and just find yourself in a random environment with randomers. But it's something around wellness. It's about, again, it's serving you, right? It's got to be about you. Do something for you that's about you and nobody else for once in your life, because I think if you start with that, I think it'll just slowly but surely, it's like with a seed that's been planted in your garden, and all you're doing is you're watering it, and it's just going to slowly, the roots are going to start growing, it's going to start coming up through the grass, and then you're going to see it blossom. But that'll take a bit of time, but start with that.
Yeah, I think that's like, that timepiece is key. I think it all starts with making the change, setting the challenge. And it takes a little while to build into it. It takes time to create a habit and to have it become something that's routine, but it becomes addictive. It's like going to the gym, you have to push for the first couple of weeks every day to commit to it. But then it becomes addictive because you start reaping the reward and the change of it. So you have to show up in the beginning and really be resilient and mindful about that. But then it does all start to, fall into place.
Yeah, it does, and I'll challenge, and I do this regularly. Challenge myself. You got to challenge yourself to take a risk because if there's no risk, there's no story. So again, and that's what's powerful in like things like this.
Mm. At the end of every episode, I told you I want to give our audience some homework, something to go away with, so that for the next 7 days before the next episode comes out, they have something to work on, like a challenge. It could be a mindset, a practice,
Okay.
a book, or even a question. Do you have something you can share?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to say consume less, do more. Okay, so sit with yourself, pen and piece of paper, and just literally check in with yourself. Just look at your time, your energy, your own health and well-being. I tell you what you could do, right? This would be really good. Go and search online. There's loads of them. It's called a Wheel of Life. Okay, Wheel of Life. Go and take the test and see what comes back. I've done it, right? So it goes through like your friendships, your relationships, money, environment. I think there's like 8 different like segments to it, and it comes out as a spider web. And it sees where, things are, and something will, and just answer it so openly and honestly and see what comes back.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for your time today. Honestly, I'm so, so grateful that you've come on today.
No, thank you so much for this time. And I've had a really good time as well. So thanks again.
Yeah, kickstarting the day.
Yeah, ready to go.
As always around here, you have some homework. So for tomorrow, your Monday action is to commit to Luke's advice for the next 7 days. Track how it changes your energy, your clarity, or your fulfillment. Because as we know, patterns compound and small shifts move the dial. I think the biggest lesson we've learned today that success isn't about chasing more. It's about knowing when you already have enough, which I know is a super hard question to sometimes ask, especially when you don't know what really truly defines your success. But just like the fisherman who was already living his dream before the investor came along, fulfillment comes from being present, not building faster. I'm Meg, and I'll catch you next week for a brand new episode of the Sunday Suite.